Hey, everybody, it's Catherine. Let's talk about shifting realities and let's talk about this one thing you need to watch out for when you're shifting realities. So, what do I mean by that, really? Well, when you are reaching for something new, when you have a desired outcome that you're working towards and reaching for, it's not that circumstances are changing so that you can have it. It is that your inner state must reflect a new way of being in order to something to reflect as something that's doing something different in your life. Because what is reflected or projected into your outer reality, what you call physical reality, is only and ever able to be reflected as an existing inner state. So, this is why a lot of people struggle with manifesting the life that they prefer to experience. If the inner state doesn't match up with the outer circumstance that you're asking to receive or working towards, it simply is not a frequency match. And so it's your identity that has to shift. So let's go back to the beginning and let's recap. Shifting realities then means when you are wishing for, desiring for, reaching for some kind of new experience to show up in your physical reality, that can only and ever exist if your reality has shifted internally. So it's an identity shift. It is a shift into a different, you could call it parallel or concurrent reality, to where what you want already exists. But up until that moment that you shift, you're not the person who's resonant with or a frequency match with having it. So anything that changes or you're trying to manipulate or change in your outer environment, it doesn't have lasting power, it doesn't have staying power, because if you're not holding an identity that is an easy and natural match for that state of having or doing something, it's not going to show up. And as I shared this information with my Unity School group, what we constantly go back to and what I reiterate over and over again in this private membership community, Unity School, is that when you shift realities in this way, when you are working towards reaching towards something that you desire, the first thing you're going to encounter is everything that you have placed between you and that. And the most easy way to break that down is going off of what we're already talking about here. You're going to hit up against an identity or a definition of you that doesn't actually exist. Now, it may have served you to help you get to this point, to help you get to where you are up until now. But if it was a sufficient identity or definition of self, sufficient enough to allow you to have the reality, the things that you desire, then you would have it already. So it is absolutely a reality shift. It's an identity shift. And that identity that is, in other words, keeping you from having this desired, preferred experience of reality, that is the first thing that you're going to hit up against. And it can be pretty disarming, that dismantling process. If you're willing to stay with it, um, it can be quite a ride. But I want to give you some inspiration to not only know you're not going crazy when you hit up against this old identity of you, the identity of you that cannot give you the experience that you prefer because you'd have it already. So what you're going to hit up against is this first part of this crumbling or dismantling process. And I'll give you an example from my own life. Every time you shift realities, meaning you reach for something new that's not part of your pre-existing reality, it's going to require some sort of identity or reality shift. We could call it a paradigm shift. But your inner state must change in order to be something natural that is already going to magnetize or draw into your life that outcome you desire. Meaning creation is finished, it's already there. So you're just boop, popping into a timeline, an identity, a reality of you that already has this thing. So it's an internal shift. You don't manipulate circumstances to go get it. You don't work hard to go get it. I mean, you can be disciplined and you can train your mind and you can train your brain, and that in a way is working hard. But if you're busy trying to manipulate outer circumstances and you think this is going to change your reality for good, it's a temporary fix. It does not have lasting power. Your identity, your concept of self must change. It must change so that it feels so natural to you as an inner state of being to have these things that you desire. The more excited or outrageous you feel your desires are, it's because you don't have the current self concept of believing that's natural to you. So you've got to shift to the version of you that feels this is natural to me. And when you do that, the first thing you're going to hit up against is everything, every part of an identity or definition of self that does not fit that identity that naturally feels okay with having this thing. And it can be quite a ride. So an example from my own life, this weekend, I had kind of an anxiety attack. I'm I'm someone who is an active seeker and searcher and explorer. I love to investigate new realities. I'm not afraid to change. I'm not risk averse, in other words, when it comes to changing my reality and questioning my pre-existing beliefs. Even if I feel they're really wholesome and they're working for me, it's not coming from a place of unhappiness. It's coming from a place of, I know I can always do life better. I know that there's always a version of myself that expands past where I am, that is just even more explorative, even more investigative, and doing it in such a way where I can remain of the highest service to myself and of the highest service to the community that I serve. The people here on YouTube, all of you here on YouTube, the people in my Unity School community, the men and women who are in my courses and programs. If I'm willing to go first and explore and investigate and keep shifting my realities and paradigms of self, then I can certainly feel okay with asking my community to do the same and being able to have enough of a backstory, enough experience so that I can say, here's what you do in this instance. So that's what I'm doing for you right here, right now, is I'm giving you the insider's track to what happens when you shift realities and what to look out for. So this first kind of taste of dismantling, and it can happen over and over again if you're willing to shift realities all the time, and I am. So I had this anxiety attack on Saturday where I felt so completely off. And I don't get anxiety attacks like ever. I might have a little panic here and there, but I have firmly adopted the idea and this working premise that whatever change is happening, even if it's unsettling, it's for my benefit somehow. So anything that feels challenging or feels like a problem, I adopt the working premise that this must be for me. I must be guiding myself because there is only one consciousness. There is only one reality. There's only one reality, and that is consciousness. And consciousness is you taking your inner state and impressing upon the world of form what you think and believe yourself to be, what you consent to be true about your reality. And so there is only that one reality. There is only that one consciousness. Now that can shift and that can move. It can be more wholesome to you. It can stop being a false impression, like maybe it has been for many of you up until now, that if you were living the true, abundant core truth of you, that these things that you feel would accentuate and amplify and magnify your best experience of life, they'd already be here. So when you hit up against that identity, that idea of you that doesn't support that, of you having the best that life has to offer, of you being able to be deserving or worthy of any experience that you design your mind to have, you can have it. There's nothing keeping you from that except this false identity of self. And that one reality, that one consciousness has been your working paradigm up until this point. If it is a working paradigm of you that does not supply you with the life and experience you want to be living that you prefer, then it's up to you to change. It's your responsibility to change. And when you do that, you are going to hit right up against all of those old beliefs. You're going to hit right up against those things that you might have heard since you were a tiny human, about you not being able to have certain things, or we're not the kind of people that do that, or you're not smart enough, or you're not capable, or nobody loves you, or whatever that stuff, it's all going to come up. And so I've been aware over the last week or so some very intense energy coming in, and I've been very disciplined and mindful of what kind of thoughts and ideas and beliefs am I being a custodian of in my inner reality? In other words, what beliefs am I caretaking? What things am I consenting to be true about myself? And do I want them to be true about myself? Are those things supporting the life I want to live, the experience I desire to have? And if they're not, they got to go. And so I realized in this, I call it the weekend of anxiety because it lasted through Saturday and Sunday. All this stuff was coming up. All of these things that I consented to be true about my reality that simply aren't. And I don't want them to be true about me. Because there's either in this one reality, one consciousness, experiences that you prefer or experiences that you don't prefer. And you can make it as easy as that. They're categorically opposed to each other. There's what you prefer and what you don't prefer. And the things that I was preferring not to believe about myself, that the things I was preferring to hold on to or not preferring to hold on to as ideas, all this stuff was coming up, and it was coming up all at once. It was like, it's like when you have a clog in your drain, you got a clog in your plumbing, and everything that's stuck in that drain will come up once you start to drain it and once you start to flush those pipes. That's how it is when you have a reality shift. And I was aware of all this stuff not being true, but it made me go into panic. It made me start having anxiety and thinking about all the things that I have to do until I could breathe, come back into presence, and remember, I'm a limitless creator. I'm an abundant being. That's the core truth of me. All this stuff coming up, they may have been stubborn illusions in my reality. They may have formed my prior identity and my definition of self up until now, but they're not real. And how do I know they're not real? Because I'm not living my preferred experience. And I am in control of this projected reality based on what I'm willing to consent to be true of myself in my inner state. And if I'm no longer willing to consent to be true that I'm undeserving, if I'm no longer consenting to be true that I'm unworthy, if I'm no longer consenting to be true that there are limits to anything, psst, there aren't, that I have boundaries, that any of that stuff, if I'm no longer consenting to any of that being true, then I'm going to have to shift to the identity of me that already knows that, that's already operating in her core truth. And if I'm going to do that, all the stuff is going to come up. And I've got to be able to be willing to sit with it long enough in breath and presence to just tick them off. Like, that's not true. That's not true either. It might have been convincing and a stubborn illusion for a long time, but that's not true either. And you sit in breath and presence. That's the only way to move through this. It's the only way to move through all of those things that aren't true until you can dissolve all those illusions back into the light. There's only one reality, and that is consciousness. And whatever you consent to be true as consciousness, meaning the only filter of experience that you have of consciousness is the consciousness of yourself. What are you allowing or consenting to be true of yourself that doesn't feel good for you? That you know in your heart of hearts doesn't support where you want to be going, doesn't support what you want to be doing, doesn't support the experiences you want to be having, then you must sit with them in breath and presence until they dissolve back into the light and turn back into pure potential. And until that, you'll maintain that kind of inner fuckery of feeling like you're at war with yourself. And as far as we all know, this is one chance in this lifetime for you to play with this particular identity of you, to play with this level or state of consciousness of you, and to be able to realize the power you hold in shifting that to however you want it to project and reflect in your outer reality. You hold that power. It's not politics. It's not the moon. It's not Mercury retrograde. It's not your mom. It's not your dad. It's not your boss. It's not your job. It's not your money situation. It's what you consent to be true about yourself and about reality. And until that inner state matches, becomes a resonant match for the kind of experiences and the kind of things that you want to have, you'll maintain that inner fuckery, that feeling that you're at war with yourself. And it's simply because you won't sit with those unwanted feelings, those unresolved feelings within you long enough to say, shit, that's just not true. It's just not true about me. That's not who I am. That's never who I was. And maybe this version of me was really good at getting me here, but I've been here for a long time. I've been in this particular state of maybe limbo, where this liminal space where I'm no longer there, but I'm not quite where I want to be. Oh, there's my buddy, Jack. Hi, Jack. You coming to see me? He's the neighbor's cat. He likes to hang out. Hi, Jack. You're on camera, buddy. And it drives my dog crazy because he doesn't like cats. So now that Jack is here, I guess that signals the end of this call. So this is what we work on in Unity School. I help you sort this out. I help you get your inner state matching and training your brain to match the outer experience you wish to have. It's not rocket science. It's not necessarily easy, but it is simple. But if you want to consent to be true, something else that's far more beneficial and wholesome to you, it takes you to the reality that you know is going to allow you to have the best, most desirable experience of this life. Please know it's available to you, but it's yours to change. Sometimes I say to my clients, it's yours to fuck up, but it's also yours to change. We hold the power. You control your projected reality. And it's all through your inner state. If you want to become an ace and a master at being able to shift this for yourself, that's what Unity School is all about. I hope this message finds you well. Blessings.